the iHeartRadio app. Thank you to the MLB Network for the highlight of Gurriel's home run last night. Wasn't enough. 6-5 loss, the Cardinals losing to the Pirates. And that means that
the
Diamondbacks, pardon me. Thank you. And that means that the Washington is in town, the Nationals, beginning a series with the D-backs tonight. Piecoro is joining us. Nick Piecoro is joining us right now. Beat writer, Arizona Republic, and azcentralsports.com. You can always follow him on X at Nick Piecoro. Nick, welcome to the show, pal, as always. So in your estimation, are they about ready now to change closers, or will they do it by a committee? And is Sewald going to be left out of that rotation?
I don't know. Yesterday it sounded like Torey Lovullo was going to stick with him, but I don't know. It's been a rough 3-4 week stretch here for Paul Sewald. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they made a change, even if it was one of those, let's back him out of the role for a couple of days or, a couple of outings in a lower leverage spot and then go back to him. I think they would much prefer to have him in the ninth inning. I know he means a lot to that team in the clubhouse. I think they valued everything that he brought from a stabilizing perspective last season. And I think everything just kind of aligns really well when he is pitching the ninth inning and pitching it well. But he's been struggling lately, so you can't keep giving away games. You argue though that they're playing well enough lately that you can't really give away. There's never a good time to have a closer struggling. Don't get me wrong, but they've been able to have a really good month of July despite it. He's been great. They've been great. He hasn't been. So they've been able to get through it. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, I know how much he means to that team and that clubhouse, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck with him a little bit longer.
Nick, it's interesting you bring that up. Listening to Torey Lovullo talk about it, a little trepidation there as far as the ringing endorsement one way or the other. But they've won 6 out of 9 since the All-Star break, and they've won 3 series in a row. Do you think Torey's going to lean on the side of that Sewald's got a little more credit or cachet because they won 3 series in a row to see how he ends up, maybe works himself out of this slump?
I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, it's hard to keep giving away games. Those can be demoralizing. Luckily, though, they have been winning a lot lately, and they haven't hurt in the same way. These guys have been bouncing back from these losses, and they've been losing games and well, it's okay. We still took the series. They haven't just been these crippling defeats. When it first started, when his struggles first began, there was that night at Dodger Stadium, and that was a tough loss. And it felt like it was a bad omen because of how badly they needed to win at the time to kind of solidify themselves as buyers and as contenders. They've done that. They've already bought. They are contenders. It's hard to really look at this team and not see them getting into the playoffs at this point. But like I said, you can't keep giving away games in the ninth inning.
Nick Piecoro is our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Our State 48 Roofing, it's your call question of the day, Nick. I want to throw it at you. With tomorrow being the MLB trade deadline, what type of player should the D-backs go and acquire? 4 options. 1, another starting pitcher. 2, another reliever. 3, another bat. 4, make no more trades. What do you think?
I'll tell you what I think they're trying to do. It's number 2, and that's another reliever. I think that was the second option, at least.
Yes, it was.
It sounded to me like Hazen and company were pretty locked in on trying to add one more arm that could give them some coverage in the middle late innings. That kind of tells me that there's some willingness to move on from Miguel Castro, who's getting paid a lot of money, but really hasn't been able to put it together yet. I don't really feel like it's much of a reaction to Sewald, but look, if you do end up having to bump Sewald out of the ninth inning and, who knows what's going to happen to him after that, from from a confidence mentality perspective? Is he really going to bring much after that? I don't know. I mean, I would like to think he still would, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Another reliever would be nice to have to kind of backfill there and give you another option in the late innings.
And Nick, on that point, 33.3%, which is in the lead, do agree with you, followed by another starting pitcher, 27.8%, which leads to my next question for you, Nick, is you think a lot of Hazen's decisions tomorrow, or even today, depend on the report, not so much on Merrill Kelly, but on the report of how Erod is progressing or not progressing. Will that determine for maybe another starter per se?
Yeah, it certainly has been part of it for a while now. Everything that he's been saying that they've been hearing on all of those pitchers, or both of those pitchers, is that they're progressing well. Prior to that, it was Jordan Montgomery and how he was progressing too, and he's already back now. I think that if they were throwing their bullpens or throwing their sides and needing extra time or feeling, more soreness than you'd expect, then he would be a lot more apt to be sniffing around on that rental starting pitching market. But look, I mean, it seems like those guys are all trending in the right direction. I don't know that there's too many guys that are going to be moved in the next 24 hours that are as good as those guys, frankly. I'm not sure how many guys have been moved thus far that are as good as those guys from a starting pitching perspective. So I think he's just kind of, trying to read and react to what's going on right now. And it seems like the thing to do is just to kind of bet on the health of those guys. I think you feel pretty good after watching what Yilber Diaz did in 4 starts, after seeing the way Ryan Nelson has pitched in the last month and a half. Worst comes to worst, those guys are making additional starts. Like, hey man, they went on their hottest stretch of the season with those 2 in the rotation.
I'm with you on that 100%, Nick. I went with no more trades just because I'm in agreement with what you just stated about what else is out there and would anybody else really help the team. So let me follow up then with this question. I know that we're just coming into August. Still got to play all August. Still got to play all of September. But is scoreboard watching now a thing in that dugout, or at least by the front office?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure they're paying attention to how everybody's doing. I heard some grumbling about the Orioles not being able to beat the Padres a little bit more than they did over the weekend. I'm sure everybody's paying attention to what the Mets and the Braves, even at this point, are doing as well. There was a point last week when I wondered if we needed to start paying attention to the Dodgers a little more closely. Maybe it was right before before the All-Star break, but I kind of seem to have kicked it in gear here recently. So I mean, I think the most likely outcome is they're going to end up in a wild card spot once again. The way they're playing, the way their roster looks, the way Suarez has come around offensively in the last month. It just doesn't really feel like there's any, I mean, barring more injuries or something like that, I have a hard time not seeing these guys getting into the playoffs.
And I think, Nick, the point you made about, hey, tough to give those away, especially against a team like the Pirates, who are just 2 games back of the wild card. If it comes down to the last day or last week, they'll look at the head-to-head. But so far as head-to-head's concerned, with the Giants and the Padres in front of you pretty much, you're not going to see the Mets much, if at all, the Cardinals or the Pirates again. That's vitally important if it comes down to that last day of the head-to-heads. And that's why I'm sure Torrey was a little perturbed after last night's loss. Yeah.
They have a tough schedule coming up the rest of the way, too. When I was looking a week or so ago, I think it was the second or third toughest of all the contending teams in the National League the rest of the way. So, yeah, I mean, look, every game could count.
3.
We saw it last year. Every game did count. And, if anything else happens around the league, if Seiya Suzuki catches that fly ball, I think it was in Atlanta, the Cubs were playing last September, maybe the Diamondbacks still make the postseason. So look, they've they've got to win as many games as they can. It's as simple as that.
Does Corbin Carroll finally get off the schneid, or is this what we're going to see the rest of the season?
I don't know. I know he's working hard. I know he always is working hard. And I know he cares a lot. And it just feels like he's really close. It's felt that way for most of the last few months to me, where he's taking, maybe a really good swing or two a night, and just can't really seem to find that consistency that he had last year, where it just felt like he was such a tough out every single time he stepped to the plate. But I'll tell you what, man, if they can get him going, I mean, they're a really dangerous team. They're a dangerous team right now. If those starting pitchers come back healthy, the way Brandon Pfaadt has pitched, Ketel Marte is an MVP candidate. Christian Walker is a monster in the middle of the lineup. It's a tough team. It's a good bullpen, I still think. I just feel like if Corbin gets going the way he was last year, it just obviously adds a different level, different amount of depth to that lineup, and just makes them a more dynamic offense as well. They would be right where they were, in terms of being a scary team to face in the playoffs like they were last year.
Hey, last one real quick for you. Jordan Montgomery, after his last start, I thought it was very solid. Did he say anything in particular with the time off or his healing time might have helped mechanically wise that he's trying to recapture from the struggles he's had this year?
1 minute.
I am afraid I don't know the answer to that one. I was not in Kansas City when he made his start. I know he's been working on various things here and there, and sometimes to his detriment. I think he was, trying to make little mechanical changes to get a mile per hour or two back on his fastball that he had lost from last year. And I think that's kind of what got him in all these struggles in the first place. So I don't know. I'm not very concerned about him. I look at what Blake Snell's been able to do with the Giants here the last 3-4 starts, and has turned himself into a trade candidate and a guy who could opt out of his contract. And I don't think it's going to take much for Jordan Montgomery to do the same thing. I know a lot of people have talked about how, this contract doesn't look good and the Diamondbacks are going to get stuck with him for next year. I think there's a pretty decent chance he's going to pitch well enough that he's going to be able to opt out as well and go get a big payday, the kind of payday he was hoping to get last offseason. It doesn't take much. If you pitch well for 6 weeks down the stretch, you might even only have to pitch well for 5 starts down the stretch to get clubs to be eager to add. I mean, as hard as it is to find starting pitching. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be an interesting storyline to watch.
Always good, pal, when you take time to come on with us. We always appreciate you. Enjoy tonight's game, okay?
All right, sounds good.
There you go. Nick Piecoro, everybody, as our guest. He is presented by the largest towing company in the state. That is All City Towing. And they're hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, and customer service personnel. Look, you get benefits that are absolutely sensational. You can set work schedules. You get a healthy 401k employer match, health benefits, employer paid life insurance, and a monthly fuel allowance. Yes, that is all available to you at All City Towing. So take your career to the next level. Just go online and go to allcitytowing.com and search careers. That's allcitytowing.com and search careers. It's All City Towing, where your future is on the move. When we come back, a little football at 50. We're hanging out today at Casino Arizona. Rock and Manooch with Jimmy B, Fox Sports.